The GOAT tames 3 lions to set the stage for an epic World Cup final. Balogun speaks up on that controversial red card ban as FIFA's boss is under investigation. And just how did football's prophecy-fulfilling photo come to fruition? This is DMAC Daily. What have we just witnessed? Something beyond cinema entirely. That was a match day for the ages, with the unk of all unks, the 39-year-old MLS stat padding alien who barely runs in the big 2026, somehow running the show, as Lionel Messi has carried Argentina to another World Cup final, coming from behind, providing both assists to defeat England 2-1 in Atlanta. All I can think of right now is imagine being a Messi hater. How do you cope with the reality of this kind of perpetual greatness, the individual brilliance, the longevity of it all, and on top of that, the magnitude of the occasion? Because England v Argentina is one of international football's most iconic fixtures. Take the whole geopolitical aspect out of the equation, disregard those islands roughly 300 miles off the coast of Argentina for a sec, and it's still a proper heated rivalry. No, not that kind of heated rivalry, but this fixture is genuine World Cup heritage, from Michael Owen's stunning goal to Beckham's head loss, and of course, the great Diego Maradona, who delivered one of the greatest World Cup solo goals against England. But somehow, that wasn't the major talking point that day, as he also delivered the most controversial goal of all time, the infamous Hand of God. So yeah, this was always going to be a mammoth occasion, a World Cup semi-final, 2 teams that were yet to taste defeat. England battling their way to the semis with the individual heroics of Kane and Bellingham largely carrying Tuchel's side, 6 goals apiece for their star attackers. Jude with back-to-back knockout stage braces. Was he going to be the man to actually bring football home? Well, in his direct path was the winning machine of Argentina, off the back of 4 consecutive international titles won. And in 2026, despite a litany of mishaps throughout the tournament, they found themselves on the doorstep of another World Cup final. But like England, the quality of their performances had constantly come into question. So the stage was set today for a thriller, although the first half itself was anything but that. Neither side seemed willing to give an inch. This was pragmatism on steroids, the international equivalent of Atletico v Arsenal. The fact that the major highlights of the first half was an Enzo challenge on Anderson and an Anderson tackle on Messi tells you everything you need to know. A combined 0.08 XG at the halftime whistle. The second half, however, different game entirely. Julian Alvarez pulling off the game's first big chance. Jordan Pickford with a firm left hand at the near post to deny him. And within that same play, Alvarez was at it again, this time firing into the side netting. From then on, the game started to become a bit more expansive, with England taking full advantage, Rice finding Rodgers out wide, and the Villa men whipped it right into the danger zone. Molina was caught ball watching in that split second, with Anthony Gordon flying in from the back post and brilliantly dispatching that one past Martinez. No stopping that, a dream scenario for the soon-to-be Barca man, his first of the tournament. The England fans were buzzing, the beers were flying, Beckham was loving it too. In that exact moment, Tuchel's game plan was going exactly according to plan. Messi's influence at the time was limited. Immediately after scoring, Jed Spence then put in a heroic last-ditch tackle to deny Simeone. But this moment didn't have the galvanizing effect that England wanted. Instead, it woke up the beast of Scaloni's La Albiceleste. All of a sudden, the entire momentum of the match completely swung in Argentina's favor, with the 5'7" magician rising in stature with every touch of the ball. 68 minutes in, and Pickford came up with a big save, this time to deny Gonzalez's header. So noticing the pendulum had shifted, Tuchel decided to shut up shop, taking out England's goal scorer Gordon for another central defender in Konsa. The logic was that another body at the back would help alleviate the defensive pressure, but it turns out it did the exact opposite. It only invited more pressure on the back line. The box crashing runners were causing all sorts. This time, a whipped in delivery to McAllister was fired onto the post. The goal was coming, so Tuchel opted for even more defensive substitutions. But again, this only helped Argentina assert total dominance. England were penned up in their own box, and if there's anyone capable of cracking a low block, it's Messi. Picking up the ball ball in one of his favorite positions right outside the box on his favored right side, inadvertently dragging Anderson out of position so that Spence wasn't isolated in a 1v1 and feeding it to Enzo Fernandez in space, who took a touch and then launched one past Pickford. A wonder strike from the Chelsea midfielder. At this point, England were completely rattled and holding on for dear life, just trying to get to extra time. McAllister then leathered one onto the post. England were riding their luck, but in that same sequence of play, the ball then fell to Messi in that exact same terrifying position. But this time, instead of cutting it back, he opted for the byline, whipped in an inch-perfect delivery on his right peg, with Lautaro Martinez making no mistake. Jubilation for Argentina, devastation for England. They had no answers. Tony and Rashford were then thrown in at the death, but ironically, Dan Burn was leading the line in the last few minutes to try and conjure up an equalizer. It wasn't happening, and that was all she wrote for England's World Cup campaign, gone in the space of 6 minutes. So Scaloni's men have done it again, consecutive World Cup finals, and just like in 2022, the heart and soul of this team, the X-Factor quality of Lionel Messi, is at the forefront. It is mind-blowing to me that despite the aging process, despite the fact that his body is evidently nowhere near his athletic prime, Messi has somehow adapted his game to be equally brilliant. Like, there is a genuine argument to make now that 39-year-old Messi is as good as any other version of him, just in a different capacity. And I mean, on the basis of this World Cup's performances, this is probably his best individual tournament ever on the international stage. It's almost as if he's leveled up the genius factor a notch. The chance creation demon in him has reached dizzying new heights. He single-handedly destroyed England today. Extraordinary stuff. Although, to be fair, I thought Argentina as a whole went crazy today. Say what you want about favorable refereeing decisions in the past or having a lucky draw. The reality is that this team has a monster mentality, because even when things don't go according to plan, there's no panic. Understand, Argentina have been relatively poor in every knockout stage match prior to today. So going 1-0 down against a team of England's caliber, many teams would fold. They'd ridden their luck long enough. It's finally over, right? But no, intrinsically, the entire squad just rises to the occasion, embracing the uncertainty of it all to deliver another special comeback to reach the World Cup final. Considering that in their last 4 tournaments, they've won all 4 finals, they'll be full of self-belief that a 5th straight title is now beckoning. But what an occasion it's set to be. World number 1 v world number 2. Kings of South America v Kings of Europe. Messi v Yamal. The FIFA gods have just cooked with this one. It simply had to be, didn't it? But for every winner, there is of course a loser. And in the case of England, their long-awaited World Cup drought will continue for at least another 4 years. Thomas Tuchel has become the instant villain of the English press and broader public. It's funny how a 6-minute sequence can change everything. But it's not like the criticism is unwarranted here. Today's decision-making reverting to overt pragmatism, it couldn't have backfired any worse. If I'm being incredibly charitable to Tuchel here, England were well and truly on the back foot before he made those defensive substitutions. Psychologically, a lot of those players appeared to fold the second they went 1-0 up. But Tuchel should have realized that he wasn't playing Mexico today. Against the host nation, they could survive by simply parking the bus. But a low block v Argentina for 30 plus minutes, and you're asking for trouble. Tactically, it was calamitous. This was a dream scenario for Messi to meticulously pick England apart, which he did in full. So yeah, the optics of the way England folded are just ugly. The manager got it oh so wrong. They cowered in fear and paid the price. But to be fair, England had been pretty bang average all tournament, if we're being real here. Bar that second half v Croatia and the first half v Mexico, I've been otherwise unimpressed with the manner in which England have operated. Individual quality had bailed them out in the past, whether it be Kane or Bellingham. I've been a big fan of Tuchel previously, but he was unable to establish any real identity within this team. In the end, it felt no different to watching a Southgate team. Additionally, where is the scrutiny for England's big players. Don't get me wrong, I think Bellingham can hold his head high regardless. The first player since Maradona to score back-to-back braces in a knockout stage game. He's the bollocks, man. But Harry Kane, look, he bagged 6 goals this tournament. He's got the most in 3 Lions history at the World Cup. He's hit 70 plus this season alone. Crazy numbers. But he's never quite stepped up when it truly mattered most, has he? Prolific bagsman for the last decade, but his legacy on the world stage has largely been defined by shortcomings, or in today's instance, a total absence. But maybe I'm being a bit harsh here. I guess there's not much he can do when England give up all attacking intent. Regardless, all in all, it's just another instance of deja vu, another failure for the 3 Lions. So off the back of today's result, the 2026 World Cup final is set to produce perhaps the most remarkable full circle moment in football history. Lionel Messi is about to face Lamine Yamal nearly 19 years after he helped bathe him as a baby. But how exactly did this extraordinary meeting / photo come to fruition? Did someone know that they were cooking something special that day? Well, the story begins in December 2007 when Barcelona's foundation and Catalan newspaper Diario Sport were producing their annual charity calendar. Barcelona first team players were paired with children from local families for a series of photographs with the money raised supporting UNICEF, a big sponsor of Barca back in the day, amongst other charities across Barcelona. Barca-based photographer Juan Montfort was responsible for the shoot, and through complete chance apparently, the 20-year-old Messi was paired with a 5-month-old Yamal. Now at the time, Messi was already of an elite pedigree, but wasn't considered the superstar within the squad. Guys like Ronaldinho, Henry, Eto'o, Xavi, and Iniesta were all in their prime too. Yamal, meanwhile, was simply one of hundreds of local children whose families had volunteered to participate in the project. According to the photographer Montfort, he recalled that Messi was extremely shy, that doesn't surprise me, and that there was very little interaction between the pair. Yamal's mother apparently intervened to help Messi feel less shy in the shoot, to where they got the photo of him washing the baby, holding him in a towel, eventually smiling in the photo. At the time, there was absolutely no suggestion that the photographs would become historically significant. Messi had already won 2 La Liga titles and a Champions League, but he was still years away from becoming an 8-time Ballon d'Or winner. Nobody involved could have possibly predicted that the baby in his arms would eventually become Barca's next generational superstar, their next left-footed genius. Funnily enough, the images were totally forgotten about until Yamal's father, Munir Nasraoui, shared one during Euro 2024 with the caption, "The beginning of 2 legends." It immediately went viral as Yamal inspired Spain to the European Championship at just 17, alongside becoming the youngest goal scorer in the tournament's history. It's just wild that the symbolism has only grown stronger since. Yamal now wears Messi's iconic number 10 shirt with Barcelona and has emerged as the closest possible successor to the Argentine legend. Messi, meanwhile, remains Argentina's leader at 39 as he prepares for another World Cup final. And on Sunday, or early Monday for me, the pair will finally share a competitive football pitch for the first time. Nah, man, the script is actually goated. They've never played, they never probably will again, but unbelievably, the one time they will cross paths throughout their careers is in a World Cup final. The most random of photos, but the story it tells is special. A Barca prodigy at the beginning of his journey, unknowingly holding the child who would go on to inherit his place as football's next superstar. Staying in World Cup news, and US men's national team star striker Folarin Balogun has spoken out about the infamous red card that overshadowed their entire campaign, whilst the International Olympic Committee have been asked to investigate if Infantino interfered in the judicial process. There's so much to unpack here, but speaking in an interview with CBS Mornings, Balogun admitted that FIFA's decision to overturn his suspension didn't simply return the US star back into the squad as intended, right? He insinuated that it introduced a level of toxicity and anxiety into the side that ultimately led to their demise. Now, Balogun still believes the original dismissal against Bosnia and Herzegovina was inherently wrong, arguing that the contact was accidental and that it wasn't even a tackle, But the foul itself has almost become irrelevant, because the far greater controversy here was the extraordinary chain of events that followed, with Donald Trump calling Infantino, FIFA unexpectedly making Balogun available to face Belgium, and the US men's national team learning about the decision through media reports while traveling to training. Balogun said his initial reaction was happiness, but that he quickly realized the reversal would cause a lot of controversy. More significantly, he admitted he could sense nerves developing among his teammates as the Belgium match approached. Belgium, meanwhile, were handed the perfect motivational weapon. Their federation obviously protested the decision. Manager Rudy Garcia framed his response as defending football in general, and Yuri Tillemans revealed that the players even held a team meeting after learning Balogun had reinstated, almost as a tool to channel their frustration at it all. Belgium entered the game convinced the integrity of the competition had been compromised. The US, on the other hand, were carrying a political controversy that they never even asked for. Now, the resulting 4-1 defeat was not solely caused by the scandal. That's a bit of a cop-out, but the chaos surrounding Balogun's return became impossible to separate. Anyone that watched the US team prior to that match knew that that was not the same side on display, but the fallout of this whole saga has caused big problems for FIFA. A report from the Times of London made the bombshell claim that the ruling was made solely by Mohammed Al-Kamali, the Emirati chairman of FIFA's 18-member disciplinary committee, but without any of its other 17 members being asked to participate in the case. Now, although FIFA's regulations allow the committee chairman to make certain rulings alone, that technical authority does little to address the extraordinary lack of transparency surrounding such a politically sensitive decision. What's also important to note is that Al-Kamali did not actually erase the red card, right? He upheld the offense, issued Balogun with the 1-match suspension and a 40k fine to match, but then suspended the ban for a 1-year probationary period, conveniently making him available to face Belgium. Now, FIFA are yet to give a detailed explanation about how it got overturned, apart from Trump himself, who literally took credit for it all. But in a pretty wild update to the situation, the International Olympic Committee has now been asked to investigate whether Infantino intervened following Trump's phone call, despite the FIFA president insisting its judicial bodies operated independently. Now, if you're asking, what do the Olympics have to do with this? Well, Infantino was previously sworn in as an IOC member back in 2020, where he once ironically stated, quote, "I will always act independently of commercial and political interests, as well as of any racial or religious consideration." The IOC's charter also insists members must avoid political interference of any sort. With all that to say, how is Infantino gonna last as FIFA president? This guy is viewed as the most corrupt man in sport. He makes Sepp Blatter look like a saint at this point. Surely his days are numbered. We have to oust him or football is gonna be permanently cooked. Anyways, guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Just one more game remains of the World Cup. But till then, take care, and I'll see you next time.